Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. The Quranic System of Sustenance. By Allama G. A. Parwez. Translation. Fazal Kareem and Salayina Kareem. Chapter 7. The Fundamental Principle. The Quranic position on the two worldviews, materialist and spiritualist, has been covered in the previous chapters. In short, it states that the purpose of life is to bring prosperity in human existence both in the present and the future, and that the way to achieve this is for every individual to be concerned with securing the means of sustenance for the whole of humanity. Such a lifestyle obviously would mean the end of capitalism and all vested interests that have turned the world into a living hell. Marx also desired to see the end of capitalism, but he couldn't find a firm ethical foundation upon which to base his arguments, for the reason that he himself was a materialist. Neither could he accept the divine law of Rububiyyah, nor the permanent values, nor the life after death, nor the law of requital. His desire to see the end of capitalism was a noble one, but noble desires can only be realized if they are based on the firm foundations of truth. Marx had no such support, and so he derived his support from the idea of historical necessity. Lucien Lauré has written, in founding socialist aspirations on a rational economic law of social development, instead of justifying them on moral grounds valid at any time and in any place, Marx and Engels proclaimed socialism a historical necessity. However, this argument was insufficient and subsequently it fell at the first hurdle. Lenin, the disciple of Marx, soon abandoned it and followed a path of his own. Stalin came after Lenin, and he changed the fundamental ideals of socialism. The movement initiated by Lenin and Stalin was based on hatred and vengeance, and these have also come to form the basis of communist propaganda. They preach, capitalism is a curse. The rich suck the blood of the poor and the working class. Rise up and take your revenge against them. But this is an emotional appeal and not a rational or objective one. It is not based on truth. The Quran makes its invitation on the basis of truth, appealing to logic and not to emotions. Philosophy of historical necessity. As we have already noted, Marx's historical necessity means that no system can remain the same forever. According to Marxist theory, every system exists and is stable for a time, until eventually an internal rebellion gives birth to a new opposing system of ideas. With time, this new system takes the place of the old outdated model that preceded it. The blind force of history has always been this way, and so it will continue. History has no concern as to whether a system is good or bad. History simply witnesses that for every system that is in vogue, good or bad, its opposite will certainly come into being. The system in vogue today is capitalism. Historical necessity, according to Marx, will bring an end to the system and replace it with a system of the laborer and the farmer. The dictatorship of the proletariat. Eventually the system too will come to pass, and it too will be replaced by something that is opposite to it. The Quranic concept. In light of the Quran, this concept is emotional and irrational. It states that the universe is not running upon blind forces, but that there is one God who is all-knowing and all-wise, and that the universe is operating in accordance with his divine program. Every change and every movement of the universe comes to pass in accordance with his law and thus has a purpose. These changes and movements are always constructive and evolutionary. They never lead to decline. In fact, we observe that the universe is the stage of the continuous interplay of both constructive and destructive forces. Haqq, truth, and batil, falsehood. In this conflict, the constructive force always defeats the destructive force, and thus the overall movement of the universe is constructive or positive. Hence this interplay of the two forces is the driving force of evolution. Nay, but by the very act of creation, we hurl the truth, haqq, against falsehood, batil, and it crushes the latter, and it withers away. 21. 18. See also 17. 81 and 34. 49. That haq always proves true and batil always withers away is not a random or accidental process, but rather, as we have already observed, it all happens in accordance with the divine plan. But then, had God so willed, he could have sealed your heart. For God blots out all falsehood, and by his words proves the truth to be true. 42. 24. Having explained this fundamental principle, the Quran tells us to apply it to the human equation. It states that there are two types of system or nation. The first is one in which every individual is concerned only with protecting his self-interest. It is batil and thus destructive. That is, it is not in harmony with the divine law of sustenance or rabubiyyah. Hence it cannot prevail. Contrary to this is the other system in which every individual endeavors in the cause of benefiting humanity. This system is haq, and thus constructive. That is, it is in harmony with the divine law of rabubiyyah. It is everlasting. Now we will see how the Quran provides clear concrete examples to illustrate an abstract truth. Every day we see that after rainfall, twigs, scum, and other impurities rise to the surface of rivers and streams and all are carried away, leaving clear water behind, which will be absorbed into the earth. Whenever he sends down water from the sky, and once dry riverbeds are running high according to their measure, the stream carries scum on its surface. 13. 17. In the same verse the Quran provides an additional example, this time of mineral processing, in which we treat rocks in order to obtain useful metal. And, likewise, from that metal, which they smelt in the fire in order to make ornaments or utensils, scum rises. 13. 17. Thus these analogies both serve to explain haq and batil. In this way God presents the parable of truth, haq, and falsehood, batil. For, as far as the scum is concerned, it passes away as dross. But that which is of benefit to man abides on earth. 13. 17. The fundamental principle of immortality. The Quran teaches that only a system that benefits the whole of humanity can prevail. Thus all human economic and social systems are subject to the mortality vs. immortality principle. 1. A system or ideal which is based on the selfish principle, whether at the individual or societal level, is bound to be destroyed. 2. A system that aims to benefit humanity as a whole can prevail forever. Thus only a system in which self-interest is made subordinate to the collective interest will be everlasting. This is an unchanging truth, even as everything else is constantly in motion and is dynamic. In other words, the principle of rabubiyyah is the sole guarantee of long-term abundance and prosperity, and this fact can never be altered. Otherwise everything else in the universe is subject to change. All that lives on earth or in the heavens is bound to pass away. But your sustainer self will live forever, full of majesty, glory, and honor. 55. 26-7. See also 28. 88. In other words, everything in the universe undergoes changes all the time, but these have no effect on divine laws. These laws have been given by the sustainer who is beyond change and is full of majesty, glory, and honor. Issue of good and evil. The most difficult question on the minds of thinkers has always been that of morality. That is, what acts are good and what are evil, and to date there has never been a consensus, even though the question has haunted humanity from its very beginning. It is not the style of the Quran to directly address philosophical questions in detail. Instead it focuses on important principles, and only touches on the aspects of human life that are directly affected by them. It avoids getting into minor details and trivial concerns, but simultaneously offers easy solutions to major and pragmatic human problems. It tells us that when we utilize our God-given gifts, skills and means of production to develop and nurture humanity, it is care, good, And if, to the contrary, we hoard to protect our self-interest, then it is shar, evil. And they should not think, the misers who cling to all that God has granted them out of his bounty, that this is good. Care for them. No, it is bad. Shar for them. 180. This therefore is the Quranic standard by which we can differentiate between good and evil, and by which we can test the veracity of all human endeavors. Huxley has also defined good and evil in the same terms, when he says, good is that which makes for unity. Evil is that which makes for separateness. The Quranic one-word answer. Today everyone asks, what is the teaching of Islam? And what are the implications of putting these teachings into practice? But generally the answers that people give only add to pre-existing misconceptions and confusion, and thus fail to satisfy anyone. This question is not new. In fact, it was first raised when the Quran was revealed. It was asked of all the early Muslims whenever they went round inviting others to Islam. The Quran has both recorded the question as follows. But when those who are conscious of God are asked, what is it that your sustainer has bestowed from on high? 16:30. It has also supplied a one-word answer. They answer, goodness. Care. 16:30. Hence the answer is that God has revealed something that is good, everything that will bring prosperity and happiness both on earth and in the hereafter. The rest of the verse above thus reads. Good fortune awaits, in this world, all who persevere in doing good. But their ultimate state will be far better still. For, how excellent indeed will be the state of the God-conscious in the life to come. 16:30. The next verse summarizes the point in just a few words. They will have all that they might desire. 16:31. This therefore is what is meant by good. Care. The Muslim nation was established solely for the purpose of making this invitation to the good. God guides you so that there might grow out of you a community of people who invite towards all that is good. 104. Those who stand in the way of this invitation have been termed Jahannami, hellbound. Gods will sentence them. Throw into hell every contumacious rejecter of truth. Who forbade what was good, transgressed all bounds, cast doubts and suspicions. 50:25. This is the implication of the Quran's teachings, good fortune both on earth and in the hereafter. 16:30. Thus anyone who puts these teachings into practice is a true person of conviction. Momin. It is they who are truly believers. Mominine. 8:4. In the eyes of God they have greater honor and live in dignity, and so are protected from chaos and destruction. Theirs shall be great dignity in their sustainers' sight, and forgiveness of sins. That is, their shortcomings are made up for. And a most excellent sustenance. 8:4. In fact, every messenger in history was sent to preach the same teaching. Hence in the Quran Noah's people were told that if they followed the divine program, all means of subsistence would be available to them in abundance. Their crops would be well watered, and they would have plenty in terms of possessions and children. He will let loose the sky over you with abundance and will aid you with worldly goods and children, and will bestow upon you gardens, and bestow upon you running waters. 71:11-12. The same promise was given to the followers of Moses and Jesus. And if they would but truly observe the Torah and the Gospel and all revelation that has been bestowed from above upon them by their sustainer, they would indeed partake of all the blessings of heaven and earth. 5:66. If the earlier people of the book had observed the teachings of the revelation, they would have brought peace and prosperity to the whole of humanity. Unfortunately, the religious elite introduced their own ideas for selfish reasons and so changed the divine deen into something else, and profited greatly from their exploitation of the people. Their people in turn were influenced by these false teachings, and they too became preoccupied with hoarding. Subsequently, instead of a heaven on earth, they created hell for themselves. O you who have conviction! Behold, many of the rabbis and monks do indeed wrongfully devour people's possessions and turn others away from the path of God. But as for all who hoard up treasures of gold and silver and do not spend them for the sake of God, give them the news of grievous suffering in the life to come. On the day when that hoarded wealth shall be heated in the fire of hell, and their foreheads and their sides and their backs will be branded with it. Those sinners shall be told, these are the treasures which you have laid up for yourselves. Taste, then, the fruit of your hoarded treasures. 9. 34-5. Concluding the debate. From the above, we can clearly see that the Quran provides a firm and fundamental principle on the difference between truth and falsehood. In this way God presents the parable of truth, haqq, and falsehood, batil. For, as far as the scum is concerned, it passes away as does dross. But that which is of benefit to man abides on earth. 13. 17. This is the pivotal principle about which the entire teachings of the Quran revolve. The Quran teaches us that the whole of humanity is one ummah, one nation, and one party, Jamaat. However, individual selfishness and vested interests have divided humanity into factions of every kind. The teachings of the Quran aim to abolish these differences and unite humanity as one family again. Had restoring oneness not been the aim of the divine program, then capitalism would have been laid down as a permanent principle, thereby permitting the rich-poor divide, and allowing the wealthy classes to become infinitely richer without any ill consequences. Hence the Quran clearly states, and were it not the aim of the Quran that all people would become one community, we might indeed have provided the rejectors with roofs of silver for their houses, and silver stairways to ascend on, and silver doors for their houses, and silver couches on which to recline, and gold beyond count. 43. 33-5. But as we already know, capitalism is focused only on immediate gains. And this makes the rabubiyah of humanity impossible. Yet all this would have been nothing but a fleeting enjoyment in the life of this world. 43. 35. It follows that under capitalism and its perpetual rich-poor divide, humanity can never become one and united. Thus God has decreed that immortality can only be gained under a system that aims to provide universal sustenance for humanity. This is an absolute truth. But the life to come, in the eyes of your sustainer, is for the righteous. 43. 35.